Good morning, guys. We are joined again by a guest on the Elite Coach Live. And today we're going to be chatting about studying, coaching, and fighting. I mean, what a combo. That is just the perfect recipe for a great night out for me, in my eyes, anyway. It shows what I enjoy anyway. But guys, as always, these Elite Coach Lives are brought to you every single week so we can help you guys move the needle and becoming the coach that you want to become. So if you're watching us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you consume this, if you listen to one on a podcast, do us a massive favor. Make sure that you click that subscribe button so you get notified every time a new episode comes out, guys. Okay. But today I am joined by somebody who I've been mentoring. He's a student of SCE, but more recently, I'd like to class him a bit more as a friend because I've got to know him quite well over the past few months as well. And I am joined by Mr. Hugh Tremlett. Hugh, how we doing, mate? We all good?
I'm very well, Steve. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. I'm living the dream, mate. I'm living the dream. I'm chatting S&C. I'm chatting coaching, and we're doing what we love doing. What's not to like, mate? What's not to like?
That's it. You live and breathe it, mate. You live and breathe
exactly it. Exactly that. So, for I know some of the students may recognize you, but for the guys who don't know you, do you want to give us a bit of a snapshot, a bit of an intro into your life, what you do, yourself as a coach, mate?
Yeah, sure. So I recently got my level 4 through S&C education. In terms of my background fitness, I played football when I was a kid, boxing, got into a little bit later. Rugby, I was too small, but I was a fan of it. By the time I became big enough to play it, I didn't know what was going on the pitch, so I just had to kind of let that slide. But when I lived in New Zealand, I trained in a gym called Ludus Magnus, where I was fortunate enough to train amongst the All Blacks were training there, and that was the World Cup winning team from 2011. Nice. So it was like some great players. There was MMA champions there, and they were doing a lot of primal movements and what I now recognize as S&C exercise. So it was that was my education, and I soaked it up like a sponge, basically. And then I took boxing seriously. It just gave me a sense of direction. Even though I was fairly a novice, I took it under the wing of a very good coach in New Zealand, Terence Reid. He's got a lot of NZ fighters on the Commonwealth Games this year, and so and now I recognize what he taught me was good fundamentals. And so I treated it 6 days a week. I trained 6 days a week. I wanted to train like a pro amongst the pros, amongst good amateurs. And now coming to sort of S&C education, I feel like there's just the gaps in between the knowledge base is now giving it a bit more of a logical flow to how to structure a session. And I currently do boxing classes throughout Virgin Active and throughout some other gyms around South London, and just working with a pro fighter for his debut. It's kind of like my first client, which I sometimes have to pinch myself at the opportunity, but have to, obviously you can't be like that too long. You've got to grab the opportunity with both hands, and you've been chosen for a reason. So then you've got to believe in yourself without getting ahead of yourself. It's a balancing act. So constantly having to just, double check. Am I following the processes that I've learned through S&C education? There's a process that we do, and don't treat it bigger than it is. Don't treat it smaller than it is. There's processes to follow, and do that, we'll do it right. But yeah, that was a mouthful, mate.
Yeah, mate. No, it's good. There's a lot to unpack there. I think it's great. I think the fact that you got exposure to that, and I think what's really interesting, one of the last bits that you said there was kind of the knowledge has elevated. So it started to bring everything together. So it's kind of understanding the why behind, the All Blacks were doing this in 2011. And I just thought it looked pretty cool. Now I understand they were doing it because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. These elite boxers were doing this in 2011, 2012, 13, 14, 15, etc. That was pretty cool. But now I know why they were doing it. And I think it's a really cool thing, because I think what a lot of coaches sometimes struggle with is they know what to do, but they don't always know the why behind it. And because they don't know the why behind it, they haven't got the confidence to deviate away from the plan, or they don't quite understand is, well, if this doesn't work, what else can I do? You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think, or just the kind of, for example, like the plane of movement. In a boxing, you need strong legs, you need good rotational strength, you need good mobility, and so often I'm not sure where I heard this quote, but it's often the sport that creates the problems in terms of, there'll be shoulder mobility issues with a boxer because it's all anterior dominant, and then therefore we've got to negate that, or at least try to equalize that through S&C. And so with that kind of having exercises, regressions and progressions in that rotational realm, for example, and then just looking at the pillars of strength and conditioning, you've got your hinge, your squat, your push pull, vertical horizontal, sorry. And and it's just kind of knowing your regressions and knowing the thing that I've learned through this last few months is there's no handbook for the psychology and the relationship between athlete and coach. And through doing classes, it's every person's different, and there's reading the room is something that can only be done in the trenches. I'm not sure if it can be done, put into a book. If it can, I'd like to meet the author, because it's it's a skill. Yeah, it's a skill set that's ongoing, and I think it changes from one class to the next. When I'm looking at a group, you can think, oh, that class was amazing, you've got a really good buzz, and then next class you've got 5 of beginners, there's a different buy-in to what's been explained. So immediately it's a clean slate again. And I think it's the same with every athlete, with every personality I'm going to work with. There's always something to learn even with every session, but definitely with every athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. We chatted about this on a recent immersion session we do for the students at SCE, and we chatted about enhancing performance and splitting performance down and looking at what has the biggest impact. And it's got training, genetics, and then coach-athlete relationship was also a big impact on performance. Right. And I think a lot of people underestimate that. They dig into the weeds of the sets and the reps and the nutrition, and all very, very valid things, all things that are measurable and have a massive, massive impact on performance. But I think exactly what you're saying, a lot of people lose sight of that coach-athlete relationship. And Jowett's done some great models out there in the 3+1, and then you go into motivational theories and stuff like that, and then you start to pick apart, and you just go, these are just really good communication skills, really, really effective, and building solid relationships is what helps you get the most out of it. And I think ultimately, once you're able to do that, that's what really does unlock performance, you know. So I want to sort of take it back a little bit in terms of, because obviously you're doing a lot at the moment, there's a lot going on and stuff like that. So I want to take back to studying, because quite easily you could have easily took the route of saying, well, I've watched these, I've trained this, I've done that, I'm quite successful in my own right. Why would I want to continue to study more? What's the driving factor behind you, mate, in wanting to keep studying?
Well, I think it's who I am and where I come from. My father was he had a second-hand bookstore. I grew up in a second-hand bookshop, and this wall to wall, it was just dusty books. He used to have me carrying boxes up and down since I was a little kid, but there's always something to read. Doesn't matter. It could have been anything. It could have been criminology. It could have been usually sports biographies was what I gravitated to as a kid. Music, cinema, it could be psychology, philosophy. Just pick anything up while I'd be manning the shop and just start reading. And it's just kind of, and with my the boxing and the discipline of it, like I used to watch the clock in jobs, wanting to go to the gym and train. And now what I do is for a living is what is my hobby. I get to wear shorts and t-shirt to work, and it's a blessing. Like it's just a very simple thing, but so with if I want to train as optimal as possible and take it, and then I want to help people do the same. I truly, I feel like the market is saturated with. You can get a level 3 qualification quite easily these days, and it's quite saturated. And I just know that I'm not very good at putting on a front, knowing that I could get found out. And I don't ever want to be in that position where, well, instantly credibility would be lost in it. And if I don't have an answer to a question, I don't know, but I'll go and find out for you. Simple as. Yeah. And that's it. And it's just that's what it is. I just want to make sure that I'm a man of substance to begin with and a coach of substance. With otherwise, yeah, you're either good or you're a charlatan at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to, and that's what it's to negate ever being perceived as a charlatan. Yeah.
I think that's really interesting, because I think the biggest thing that jumps out to me, mate, is the fact that the learning, the studying, the continued growth was one. It's come from a habit. Obviously, it's something that you've grew up with, but also it's part of your values of, listen, rightly or wrongly so, whether you want to be perceived, you don't want to be perceived as a charlatan, or you don't want to feel vulnerable because you don't know the answer to something, but it's actually a crucial thing of, I'm going to keep developing because I want to try and eliminate all the holes in my games, but ultimately I want to try and improve someone's performance. Yeah. Like that's the top and bottom of it. And I think that's really good. I think a lot of people, it's very easy to start studying, learning something for that a bit of an ego boost. But I think the key thing with yourself, and I can say this because I see it happening, is you apply it. You actually do something with it. You don't just learn something and then just go, all right, okay, cool, and then do nothing with it. You apply it, but also it means that you're quite selective in the material you're doing now because you've got a purpose behind the learning. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm also selective about sort of who I work with as well. I'm not. That's why I do have the classes as a base, because if the relationship isn't a two-way thing, it has to be a two-way thing. And I just don't think it could just be anybody's PT. I don't think I could be anybody's coach, and I don't think it's vice versa. And developing that, but a real quality coach-athlete relationship is going to be worth its weight in gold. I think it's priceless. I'll touch on a little bit with my client at the moment, Freezy, where I started training with him and outdoor in the park. He was my boxing coach in the park with pads. In the middle of snow, blizzard, winter, we'd be training in the park. And I said I wanted to step in, do a white collar fight with him, and I wanted him to be in the corner. And it was all going to happen. Then I said touch on last year, where my brother-in-law and father all passed away in the space of 10 days. And it was, okay, a storm. That's a life storm. And I understand everybody goes through it. So that's why I am quite public about it, because it's very easy to go off the tracks with something like that when it happens in your life. But boxing and he, when it all happened, he'd never met my family before, and he organized the local community to make donations for my mother, and to do a bouquet of flowers and a little bit, just a donation. And then he didn't have to do that. And so from that point of view, from me to him, as him being my boxing coach, my loyalty to him for that reason it's lifelong. It's almost like he can't do much wrong in my eyes. But then again, you have to point things out from time to time. And then selected me as my coach for me to coach him S&C, which is quite. We'll talk about the dynamic of how that works, because I'm not sure if it does. But I recently competed with him in my corner. We got the job done, and where I pulled out of the original fight for those reasons, we got the fight done last Sunday and got the victory, and it's a good tick in the box that we overcome adversity, and we kind of did it together, you know. And so that trust that we've developed of like knowing who we are as characters, that's why I think it's working, and I'm just privileged and honored to be chosen by an athlete like that to help. And yeah, we won't go into too much detail of what we're working on, just because it is he does have an adversary out there at the end of the day, so we've got to be a bit careful of what we talk about. But
yeah, mate, that's absolutely awesome, and I think this is the power of coaching for me. And I think sometimes it gets so understated. I mean, I love reading the sports science. I love the physiology, the why we do what we do, and digging into the weeds a little bit with that. But
absolutely,
like I think sometimes it's easy to take safety and comfort behind that stuff, the black and white stuff. The research says this, the research says that, but actually, the gray areas where the magic happens, where bringing the sets and reps together, but also those relationships, those lifelong relationships. We've heard Brendan talk about it, the fact that he's trained a couple of sisters through their like tennis careers, and now they're fully grown up, doing wonderful things, still training hard. He's had a massive impact, and you and Freeze, you've got that fantastic relationship now where obviously if adversity comes, you're there with one another. And I think we can never lose sight of that. And just because you can't measure it, there's no specific tangibles. You can try to in terms of questionnaires, all that crap. But realistically, you just never know what impact you're having on that person. Because if you didn't have a positive impact on Freezy wouldn't do what he did. If you didn't have that positive impact, Freezy wouldn't then come to you and say, actually, I've got the fight of my life coming up and stuff like that. I need you in my corner to help me with my preparation and stuff like that. And so I think we can never understate the art of coaching and how important that is to have constantly building those relationships and moving forward with that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, when it sort of bring it back to just being a good mate as well. You know what I mean? I think like, without throwing too many sort of technical sort of coaching words into it, and but then that's so when we've got that side of things, but then when it comes back to, like you said, the research and making sure that everything that I'm focused on, I'm prepared research wise, technique wise. I've done my homework. I understand what if there are sort of limitations mobility wise for certain exercises, then I've got to step in if we're pushing too far in one certain area, or we know that this is the type of athlete you are. We're gonna enhance this strengths, and sort of being upfront with what I do know and what I don't, and what I can help with, and what maybe someone else could do better, and things like that. Is actually, I think that's really important as well. It's just, and until there's always a level I'm trying to get to. But I mean, you don't want that to be like, I'm someone who likes to study and do this. I might not have that knowledge base yet, and I need to be upfront about that. Yeah. And then they say, but I am working on it. And then before you know it, it's that kind of thing. So I am aware that I'm recently qualified. I do have knowledge, but it's for a long time it was all a bit jumbled before I got. We worked with S&C Education, so.
Yeah, I think there's a saying that Brendan gave me exposure to very early on, and it's you're always zigzagging your way forward.
Yeah,
zigzag your way forward. So sometimes you'll go in the weeds and you'll go super like study wise, and then you'll come back onto the coaching and the application. You'll make the mistakes. You won't understand what you're doing here. So you'll study again, and it's just that line of zigzag, zigzag. But as long as you're moving forward, that's the key thing in all of this. And you're gonna have peaks and troughs. Some stuff will do great, and then stuff will drop here, and then you'll. But as long as you're moving forward, and I think that's a great way of looking at it.
It just brought up. There's another client I've got who's he's just got Irish descent. I'm a Welshman, so I think it just clicks, and it's just got that kind of. He's really into technique, boxing, footwork, and skill sets, and that's what I like to work with as well. And we were doing a footwork drill on this. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a Webby's agility ladder. It's a 360 degree, and we're doing footwork on that. And I was explaining, doing a demo, and he wasn't quite getting it. And sometimes when it's like that with there might be an awkward tension because they're not quite getting it, and then but then I said, I'll just give you 2 seconds to sort of work on it by yourself. He goes, yeah. I'll just keep going around in circles. So instant kind of taking the mickey out of each other. But that's coming back to the relationship. I think it has to be a bit of fun as well. It has to be a bit light when there is moments where you're not quite getting what you want to. You're not quite making it happen from an athlete perspective. To be able to just kind of diffuse it and it not be this pressure cooker, because it doesn't have to be.
And you look at any sort of learning aspect of that, and again, it goes to show that the brain only likes to be stressed to a certain point. People try and avoid stress and all, but that frustration when you're learning something is actually key to actually understanding the skill and getting to the point and getting into a flow state or retaining that information. But that stretch can only be kind of 5% out of your comfort zone. And different figures get banded about, but if we look, just quote Stephen Kotler, if it goes above that 5% and that frustration goes too high, like no learning is going to occur. Just frustration is going to happen. So as a coach, it's right. How do I turn the dial down on that frustration? And exactly that mick taking, that bit of joke, that distraction.
There's that bit in your. I think it's in the level 4. There's a bit about limiting beliefs, the narrative that we tell ourselves. It's funny that because the actual explanation was mainly about agility, footwork, or coordination, and they'll say that a lot of people will say my coordination is this, my agility, I'm terrible on I've got 2 left feet, and then I introduced like a concept to a class, and honest to God, 90% of the people were saying my coordination is this, my stability is that, and it's and I was like, okay, how do I navigate this? Because I've got a room full of people feeling like they don't want to do it. And I just said like that limiting beliefs. I'm studying this at the moment, and funnily enough, the thing they're talking about is related to people talking about agility, speed. And I said, instead of letting that voice in your head run rampant, slow down, look at the demonstration, listen to what's been said with the demonstration. Just ask yourself, okay, so how does it work? And it just reframe how you view things, view the situation, and then instantly that's where the learning process will happen. But it's literally when you just tell that inner voice of negativity or limiting voice to
that's it, 100%. And it's been framed in so many different ways. And every time you say a negative thing like I am this or my so-and-so is rubbish or whatever it may be, the brain then instantly searches for a situation or a scenario where your balance was rubbish, and it reinforces that negative thought time again. And because what you can't do is a positive and a negative, the working situation, but the brain doesn't like that. It doesn't like 2 conflicting statements. It wants one to be true. This is why I never get into a discussion with somebody on social media and say they're wrong. It just doesn't work. But
never again.
Yeah, exactly. But so the brain will look for situations where it goes, right, well, I can back up this statement. And 9 times out of 10, it's always a negative one. So it's framing yourself and saying, I'll master this, I'll master that, and then the brain will shift the focus into, all right, well, we need to be able to do this, this, and this, and this, and it gets better and better, and it lays down a new pathway and goes, oh, you can do that, you can do that, you know.
And it's amazing, like where it's almost like you create your own illusion of a brick wall mentally, where and then it's not even like you break the wall down; it just disappears. And then you're suddenly onto a learning pathway, and limiting beliefs. It's everywhere. Was it you who said that you've got a swear box?
I've got a few different tips here. You know, we've got swear boxes. We've got all sorts in the gym, but you need. It's just basic. It's just trying to reframe it and like say, I don't allow people to say I can't.
Yeah,
that's part of the swear box. I would rather somebody come out with an expletive rather than say the word can't.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I think it's a really good segue thinking, because obviously confidence building and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And obviously the famous phrase that Mike Tyson came up with, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So thinking about that mindset piece and that shift and that confidence and stuff. And I want to flick back to a couple of weeks ago where you probably had a plan. Freezy's been working on some stuff with you, and then all of a sudden you've got some guy trying to take your head off. Yeah. So how did you sort of overcome that, mate? Give us a bit of an insight into your fighter's mind from yourself, but also what insight is that giving you to working with the boxers that you work with or the guys that you're looking at in terms of understanding that?
Yeah, I think it was really important to get in there for that reason, absolutely, to understand from the fighter's perspective. So leading up to it, everything I worked on, I was working on feinting with the feet, feinting the jab to the head, feinting the jab to the body, constant level changes, moving my head, shoulder, like torso rotation, footwork forward, backward, left and right, circling left, circling right. And it all went out the window within about 20 seconds of the first round. and it all just became slip and then my backhand and forward and forward and forward. And got tired very quickly, but I was told it didn't look like it, but it certainly felt like it. And the heat, the adrenaline, and the thing psychological wise to bear in mind is how cool and calm can you control the inner animal as well. Because like we all turn into an animal when we get in there, and fear, like Customato said, Tyson's coach, where fear is like a fire, you can make great things with it. We wouldn't have the society we live in today if we weren't able to manage fire. But it can also, you can burn your own house down and everything down around you if you let it run rampant. So I think that's internally, that's what is going on. And I understand that quote more from this perspective that they were coming from for that reason. And I spoke with my coach, Terence from New Zealand, and my first coach, and he said it usually takes about 5 or 6 fights before the fighters his fighters at least, they're beginning to implement the strategies and tactics of which they work on with a cool head in the gym. So obviously there's going to be exceptions to that rule of thumb, but I would like to step back in there for that reason, but I think that's why this sport is so insatiable as it is. It's you learn more about yourself every time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And because there's no real other scenarios that can really replicate it. You can do rounds and rounds of sparring and all of this sort of stuff, but come fight night, like the senses are so heightened. I mean, I can go back to one of my fights in Thai boxing. I can remember the walk down the stairs, the feel under my bare feet as soon as I stepped onto the canvas, like little things like we've never felt this before. I've never felt such a coarse canvas under my feet before. The ropes, everything around, you just got this heightened sense. And I remember there was a certain point in the fight where the guy just cracked me with a backhand, and all of a sudden he like in a Street Fighter sort
Yeah,
of
that's what happens. Yeah.
down, and you go forward. And I remember, luckily, I had my coaches in the corner where that happened, so I was facing them, and all you could see was both of them going, "No, stay down," you know. So it's just like, "Oh, get back to it," and that was just a snap of like, "Oh, get back to it," you know.
That's it.
It's really, really interesting, but I think it gives you so many important lessons in life, because life's extremes, right? Training, you put 200 kilos on a barbell, squat it, deadlift it, whatever it may be. You know, you want to get your athletes to that level. You want to get them up to doing maximal, horrible intensity type stuff, because you want that base to be like really wide and deep, but you also, if they've got to perform here, you want them to have massive amounts of reserves.
Yeah.
And ultimately, that's what you're getting in life, right? When you're doing any sort of extreme thing or getting yourself out of your comfort zone, it's
so important.
You sort of, a mentor of mine said people default to the level of their training. So if you never get out of your comfort zone or never sort of train yourself to handle adversity, you will always revert back to whatever you can handle. And this is why people crumble, or they just say, I can't do this, I can't do that, when they face adversity in the business, the clients, study, whatever it may be. It's, you'll always refer back to your level of your training. So I think, looking back on your fight now, what would you say has been some of the key takeaways that you've been able to take away and implement into your life, if any?
Yeah, I mean, the one, like, where, kind of just a backstory to the first camp where I pulled out. There's one day where it's 4 days before the funerals and that, and I was training with Freezy, and he said, 1 minute you're doing the best stuff you've ever done, next minute your head's in the clouds. This is your choice. You're going through with this. This is on you. And I was on like the reflex ball, the floor to ceiling ball, and I was just working on that, doing slipping, etc. And then the metal, a piece of the metal which was connecting the ball to the string, it just came back and caught me here to cut my open. I just burst in tears because the stress of the whole situation. It was in front of all the other boxers, all the coaches, just but they knew what was going on. And then it just became clear that it's just time out, really. And leading up to this one, so I feel like I'd put all the grief on hold, and I just went into work. I just worked for like 7 days a week doing boxing classes, because I felt like I've wanted this opportunity for so long, did this, and then all of a sudden the best opportunity career-wise happens, and then real life happens. So it was just had to run with it, really. And so I feel like I put it on hold, and then 3 days before this fight a few weeks ago, all those feelings came like real heavy, and as if I hadn't addressed them, and it was like, and so then that feeling of like pulling out like I did before. But then I just said to myself, like, you know what happens, you know what feeling you have. You've had this like unfulfilled, unfinished business feeling for six months. You've got to go through it. And then there's like instant, I was like definitely going through it, and I calmed down, and I spent the 4 hours before the fight yoga, breathing, doing my own sort of yoga routine, which just to get in sync with my breathing. And I was so focused that I just don't think King Kong and his 2 left feet could have done anything about it that night, to be honest. That's how I felt. And so that's the life lesson, is that sort of there's again that reframing something where you revert back to a behavior that you did which was comfortable, that wasn't like I pulled out before, but even though it was quite a valid excuse, it's still, for me, is an excuse. It would have been an excuse. And so that I think the psychological thing of that overcoming, and also knowing that I've got people who I grew up with who have messaged since saying that it's inspired them to train. It's very small scale stuff. I'm not trying to, but it's just when you have 1 or 2 people say that it inspired them to sort of try to turn their lives around or whatever. It's just that's worth it, especially when it's people you know since you was 5 or 6 years old, you know. And and when you said you don't have, we're not aware sometimes of the effect we're having on people by just going through with our own trials and tribulations. But the fact that we go through them helps other people in some roundabout way. It's very mysterious, but it's worth it. And
mate, it's incredibly deep. I absolutely love these conversations because nothing gets around this. And I heard Tim Grover talk about the other day, and he says if you're not willing to pay the bill for the hard work and the sacrifice today, wait until you get the bill of regret. You know, and that was 100%. Like, whoa, you know, that hits deep. You know, you think
it's real.
And what he elaborated further on that, and he was going, because the bill of regret is then generational. You pass the bill on to your kids and your loved ones and the people around you, and you're wow, that is heavy. That one really hit hard, you know.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to bear that weight on my shoulders in later life. No. And there's just certain things that like I'm so thankful for the education my father gave me in certain things. But one of the last things he said was, he said, "I'm really proud of you getting into this boxing and martial arts. It's given you direction. I'm impressed." And it was just really, he said it in a breathy tone, but it was just one simple sentence that he was talking about something else. And then he just came out with that and then moved on to something. But I heard it, I caught hold of it. And he wasn't quick with compliments. He was quite good at, drilling you to get to improve.
Yeah.
And so to hear that sort of around towards the end, kind of, for some reason, it does feel like I'm living my purpose. I might have given my life this purpose, but it feels right, you know?
Yeah. But I bet that's incredibly powerful. And I think it just goes to show the power of words, the power of connection and working with people and having those relationships and being great at those relationships with those around you, whether they be loved ones or clients or, you know, people you meet in the street. I think, especially this day and age, you know, we very much like social media is a blessing and a curse, you know, people, no filter. I do believe that Facebook on social media needs to put on say, are you sure you want to post this before you press post? You know, and when you're sort of like trying to close down a document and it's going, are you sure? Because you'll lose any unsaved work and you get it needs to be like that. Are you sure you want to post this? Are you sure you want to? Because once it's out there, you know.
There's the thing I had a thought this morning. Every Wednesday I have a little window of time where I go to the same juice bar on the way back from one of my classes, and then that day I'll quickly check Facebook and do a little scroll, and then I'll see posts relating to today's current affair, and then I see rage against like today's politician who is not living up to their idea or that, and I'm going. I don't know what's going on. I haven't kept up to date. I'm too busy. And I'm so glad. Yeah, I'm too busy. I don't want to be up to date with this. It's so much online that I don't fully understand. But I feel like if you're not busy with your own sort of purpose, you can get caught up in some debates on there now. And it's crazy. But I'm guilty of posting things that I probably could do with not. You could think twice before posting, but when we think about like making your content informative and keeping it not strictly, but a bit of personality, obviously, but keeping it at least identified with what we do, then it's kind of a bit safer, I think.
Yeah. Main lesson on that: just show your values and live up to your values. Whatever you're preaching, make sure you're practicing it. You know, and I think that's ultimately, as long as you can be a man of your word and whatever you're doing and you're embodying that, then, you know, you can sleep well at night and just say, this is who I am. You hate it all of it, you know, and that's
It's like it's having a good laugh and a joke, isn't it? Online I've got good friends from back home. It's just I enjoy that when you just see like someone who's popping up with a bit of banter here and there. That's what I live for it. It's just what we grew up with, and yeah.
Mate. Absolutely love this chat, and I dare say we could probably keep going with it, and we'll talk blue in the face, and we'll definitely pick this up after Freezy's fight and stuff like that, and dig into the weeds of fight camp, because it's always easy to chat about fight camp after the fact that he's knocked someone out. It always makes life easier, doesn't it?
Make us look like geniuses. Yeah,
exactly that. But mate, I've absolutely loved this chat, mate. It's been absolutely fantastic, and we've just obviously scratched the surface a little bit about your life story, and it's a fascinating one. So thanks very much for giving up your time and sharing that. If anybody wants to reach out to you, mate, where's the best place to sort of catch hold of you?
Yeah. Thanks for having me on first, Steve. It's really great to chat like this as well. I'm on Instagram. There's Houdini is the handle. It's my childhood nickname. Then on Instagram, I'll looking to build a website in the next over the next 6 months for sure. But but get the camp done, get the victory, make sure and I think that will be the main focus going forward. But after that, I think I'll be more accessible with an online presence. But Instagram for now.
Yeah, good stuff. So, guys, if you ever want to chat or ask any questions about Hugh's life and his journey and what he's going through and what he's gone through and his fighting, or pick his brains on boxing and stuff, he's a great resource for that. Please do reach out. But guys, as always, if you've got any questions, if there's any topics that you want us to discuss, or if there's anything we can help you with right now that can help you move closer to your goal of becoming the elite coach you want to become, then just reach out to us, drop a comment, send us a direct message, and reach us whichever way you want. But until next time, guys, have a great one. Hugh, it's been a pleasure as always, and we'll catch up again very, very soon.